end up realizing that there are levels and layers to it. Today, we're going to take a look at what and how different eras of JKD students and or instructors think about the art. And we will also tackle kind of a side issue of access to some of the better known JKD notables. Hello everyone, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, and welcome to the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast number 182. This is the one about the Jeet Kune Generation Gap. As you're logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the broadcast. If you're catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. If you enjoy my work and you'd like to support the program, please visit jkdrebel.com. Click on the Rebel Gear link where you will see stuff like this, the JKD Notables coffee mug, also available as a t-shirt, long sleeve, short sleeve, hoodie, all that good stuff. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast. Yes, I'm back. My voice still sounds a little bit hoarse, but I'm like, I think I'm at like 98% or so. So thanks so much to all of you who expressed best wishes for my recovery and also for my birthday last Wednesday. You guys really know how to make a guy feel special. So it was my original intention to simply illustrate in this generation gap topic the approach that different age groups of JKD that the JKD practitioners seem to have. Like you've heard me talk about it before, how I really admire the generation that came along in the 1990s, for example, because those guys were like straight ahead. I'm going to make a living out of this. They never had the qualms about, you know, whether it was honorable to teach martial arts or, you know, whether the whole question about commercializing your Jeet Kune. I like to use the term professionalize your Jeet Kune instead. But those guys never had any worries about that. It was like straight ahead, I'm starting a school. And many of them have been very, very successful. So I was just going to talk about something like that. But along the way, I came to realize that it's perhaps a little bit more complicated than that. It appears that there's a complete separation in attitude, mindset, even belief systems when it comes to the different Jeet Kune generations. And added to that, it appears that lineage can also play a role, but more on that a little bit later. So there's a passage in one of Chris Kent and Tim Tackett's JKD books where it is said, essentially in JKD, one asks questions to get answers, but then one also turns around and questions the answers. To a JKD old timer, that passage means that it is through personal experience that one comes to conclusions. So yes, of course you would ask questions, but then with the answer, having received the answer, you still need to go do the work in order for the answer to make absolute sense. Today, people seem to think that they already have the answers because about JKD, so much has been said, so much has been written by so many over so many years. When we were training in the 80s, when I started in the 1980s, we would sometimes hear the expression, frustration is good. And for us, that meant that if you were frustrated, you were in a good place because you were expected to work through the frustration. And on the other side, you would come out an enlightened soul. Today, seems that if or when somebody becomes frustrated, then they look for somebody else to blame, and then they quit, or they move on to somebody else from whom they think they'll get the answers, they'll get better information, or something like that, and now they'll have no more worries. One glaring example of a JKD generation gap was in a recent Facebook posting about the concepts of Jeet Kune. Just what are the concepts of Jeet Kune? So I mentioned a particular concept, and I was shocked to have people who are frequent posters, frequent commenters on topics of JKD. I was shocked that they had never heard of it before. That'll become a broadcast topic of its own at a later date. One of the things that you discover in JKD, if you spend time in JKD, you'll discover that, and this is a really interesting phenomenon for me, that even though people might have differing views on a JKD topic, they have the same or very similar approach to the topic. So this is what I mean. So for example, let's talk about Junfan is the physical art, whereas JKD is the philosophy. So let's say you have one group that believes that's the setup. Then you have the other group who thinks that that's bollocks. But what they will have in common, even though they have different views, what they will have in common, some of them, is that neither group is interested in finding out how the other group came to its opinion, to its belief. It's as if they think nothing here for me to learn. They take up the I'm right, you're wrong position on the matter, and they're very stubborn about it. So different views, but the same mindset and the same attitude towards that topic. That aspect, I'm not so sure if that is, there's probably a combination of both. I was going to say, I'm not so sure if that's a generation gap or if it is as much as it might be a lineage gap, because I've discovered that even within the age groups, right, within the different age groups, you can have some younger people who are very stubborn, and you can have some older people who are stubborn just like the younger people. So that makes me think that in some regards, it might be a lineage gap, not so much a generation gap. And it does make me wonder whence cometh these attitudes. You know, do they pick it up from the seniors in their group? Do they pick it up even from the leader of their group, right? Something for you to think about. I'll finish up with this. So this was a pretty surprising aspect, and this is the question of access. It appears that some people think that if they have a question for a JKD notable who runs a school, let's say, then they should be able to call the school, ask to speak to that person, who should then come to the phone and engage in conversation with them. Now, this, I think, must be a generational thing, where perhaps the people are not aware of the evolution of the martial arts profession. You know, schools didn't necessarily start out with phones, but in the very, very early days. So in the very, very early days, you might have a school that was essentially a one-man operation. And so that guy might do everything, teach the classes. If he did have a phone, answer the phone, make the appointments, be the janitor, go to Costco and pick up everything or whatever. You might have a situation like that in a one-person show. But any school that put itself on what I would call the developmental track, then probably one of the first things you would do is to get a phone. This is exactly what happened at my warehouse back in 1987 or whatever. One of the first things you do is to get a phone, and I answered the phone because I didn't have a receptionist or whatever. But 5 years later, when we were on the developmental track, I didn't answer the phone as much as I did in the early days when I was essentially a one-man operation, right? Now, I personally never had a problem answering the phone. And truth is, even though we had people whose responsibility it was to do that, once I was teaching, I spent literally the whole day at my place. So I would answer the phone so people would have access to me. And the truth is, sometimes they would be surprised that I actually picked up the phone. But just because even like first generation people who trained with Bruce Lee, just because some of them may have made themselves more available to inquiries, doesn't mean that all JKD first generation people should be that way. Because then if you know, to think that everybody who trained with Bruce Lee should do things the exact same way, to insist on the same kind of behavior from those people, well, that's denying them their right to be an individual. And denying somebody the right to be an individual is not at all a JKD mindset. But I think that's a generational thing, you know, because sometimes people might be spoiled because they grew up in the era of instant access. So they might be unaware that in martial art, traditionally and historically, there is an hierarchy, a built-in hierarchy. Sometimes it's something that evolved automatically because of the tradition of martial arts, the tradition of seniority in martial arts. But at other times, especially with some people in the JKD world, it was a necessity. It was absolutely necessary to keep the main guy away from the masses, so to speak. Right? So in closing, I'll say this. JKD requires that you have the ultimate in open-mindedness. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't have strong beliefs, right? But kind of try to make your beliefs based on facts. And now that's another issue in and of itself. Actual facts, not your version of the facts, not your spin, you know, on the facts, right? Anyhow, we will get to all of this now that I'm back, right? So we will get to all that. I'm trying not to cough while on camera, right? So what say you? Do you think that the younger generation should just be quiet and listen to the older generation? Do you think that people should close their minds off once they think, okay, I got the answers, I have the information that I need? They should close their minds off to any new information, especially if they believe that the information that they have is the right information, is the correct information, right? Please let me know what you think in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. Coming up on Friday, I know I had promised people that Professor Salem Ashley would be on today. Turns out that Friday actually works for him. So we're going to have back-to-back Jeet Kune dialogue episodes on Friday at 6 p.m. with Joe Goitia of Goitia's Martial Arts in Chicago. And then at 8 p.m. with Professor Salem Ashley of Los Angeles. So that's this Friday, June 11th. JKD Dialogues episode at 6 p.m. and then at 8 p.m. we'll do another one. Today you can already tell is a red day. There we go. All right. So glad to be back. I missed you guys. I'll see some of you hopefully on Friday at 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. If not, I'll see you back here next week for another issue of the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast. Until then, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, signing off. Enjoy the rest of your day. Talk soon. Take care.